Hey guys, so last weekend I was literally rafting down the French Broad River, which, if you're local to Asheville, you know Section 9 is the area with the rafts. And I was with a friend and I noticed something kind of a little bit interesting. So, some people were rafting and they had absolutely no sunscreen on at all. And some were literally applying it like every 30 minutes, as if it was like, I don't know, like we got to get every inch of skin. And others were literally covered like head to toe in like chemical sunscreen. And as I was like floating before you hit the like crazy class 2 and class 3 rapids, I realized like most parents are really not suffering from a lack of information. Like they're literally suffering from like way too much information. So one influencer is going to tell you like sunscreen's toxic and you should never use it. And another influencer is telling you like literally don't go outside unless your child is covered head to toe with SPF 50. And then you have someone else that's like screaming in your ear about vitamin D deficiency as like the biggest health problem ever. And another is like sun exposure is so dangerous. So who is right? So today I want to talk all about sunscreen, vitamin D, and something much bigger that I see in clinic literally every week, and the cost of trying to parent through fear. Hi, I'm Dr. Ellie. I'm the founder and CEO of Middle Path Integrative Pediatrics here in Asheville, North Carolina. If you're in and around Asheville at all and you need extra support for your child with holistic or functional medicine, please reach out. I also have a parent program for those of you who need to deep dive into your health because you're feeling burned out as well. So let's dive in. I'll tell you what I've been seeing in clinic. What I'm seeing is people that are literally completely overwhelmed with health information. And it's not just sunscreen, you guys. It's like food. Which food is good? Which food label? Which food app? Like, when should the kids sleep? What about the wake windows? What if they miss a wake window? What about the sleep window? Should they co-sleep? Maybe they shouldn't co-sleep. It's dangerous. The vaccines, I'm getting information from the CDC and the healthychildren.org, and my neighbor told me something else and I don't even know. And I go to the store and I try to pick out a detergent and there's 50 detergents and they all look the same and they all have like healthy labels. And then there's like the gut health and the supplements and the water bottles, and it's literally everything. So no wonder we're overwhelmed and anxious. Like, as adults, and also those of you who are parents, like, of course you're overwhelmed and anxious because there's too much information and not enough people who are able to kind of give you that middle of the road, middle path kind of picture, where things can meet and live in reality without being totally fear-based or just making yourself crazy, trying to do like everything quote unquote perfect, which literally nobody can. So, of course, you're feeling exhausted, I would imagine, information overloaded, feeling like every decision could harm your child. I mean, I was literally on Asheville Mamas last night, and I won't say like all the stories of people, but like, I mean, the number of people that are just needing reassurance because they're literally afraid that everything that they do could harm their child, And we're living this fear-based wellness culture, and that's not where I want you guys to live. Most of y'all are very thoughtful. You're paying attention. You're trying super hard. You are absolutely not careless. You're just overwhelmed. And so when parents are overwhelmed, they often stop trusting themselves. I want to be able to help you with that because everyone should deserve to be able to trust themselves, okay, especially with parenting. Let's dive into that little sunscreen question a little bit more, okay? What the heck does sunscreen even do? So there's UVA and UVB rays. Those are like the rays that come down from the sun and like do their thing. Okay, so basically the UVA ones, the ultraviolet A, that's what it stands for, that basically can cause like skin aging and wrinkles. And UVB can cause the sunburn. So the ultraviolet B type rays, like the parts of the sun that like come down and cause sunburn, are UVB. But both of the different rays, UVA and UVB, they both damage your DNA and increase your risk of skin cancer. So if you're not aware, DNA is like the little thing that's inside your cells and helps create like other cells. And if it gets damaged, then it starts to go a little bonkers. And instead of replicating per normal, it'll replicate itself a ton, like over and over and over and over. And that is what cancer is. So we don't want to have DNA damage. And that's why UVA and UVB cause a problem, because they can damage your DNA. Obviously, sunburn is not a great thing for kids either. It's very uncomfortable in really bad cases, and I have seen it. It can get pretty gnarly. I've seen some big yucky blisters, and especially in young children or people with sensitive skin tones or lighter skin tones, it can be quite uncomfortable. And if you need help with treatment with that, definitely schedule a meet and greet, because we'll want to talk about some holistic options. Okay. We've talked about kind of the skin cancer. Obviously, that is horrible too. We don't want to end up with any kind of skin cancers. Sometimes you think that something is just like a little bit of eczema or something. Like I've met one person that had that experience where they had what they thought was like a little patch of eczema ended up being skin cancer. That doesn't mean that all your children who have eczema have skin cancer. That is not the case. This is usually like when you get a little bit older, but those things can happen. And of course, on a more aesthetic kind of side of things, the wrinkles and all of that, if we're trying to prevent things like that. And I know most of us who are in our middle ages are kind of thinking about a little bit of wrinkles and that sort of thing too. But we don't want to over focus on aesthetics, obviously, because mental health and general health is so much more important than a wrinkle on our forehead, or at least in my opinion. No shade to anyone doing Botox. Everyone should do what they want for their own mental health and their own feelings, but that's just not something that I'm not into. I don't know. Toxins in the skin kind of freaks me out. I'm like, do I want to inject a toxin? I don't know. I'm going to avoid that one, but let me know how it goes, y'all, the people that do it. So, all right, I'm getting off track again. There's basically two different kinds of sunscreens, y'all. There's mineral sunscreens and chemical sunscreens, okay? So I want to give you a little bit of a balanced kind of approach. So basically the mineral ones are the ones where the active ingredient says zinc oxide or titanium oxide. I think that's confusing because it sounds like a chemical, right? And so you're like, well, do I want to put a chemical on my kid's skin? Probably not. I don't want to use these that they're called zinc and titanium. But the reason that they're mineral is because zinc's a mineral and titanium's a mineral. So it's not like a chemical. It's just they use a chemical word to describe it in the ingredients. They provide super excellent skin protection. It's very broad spectrum. And the good news is it totally works the exact moment that it's applied. There's no waiting to head outdoors. You don't have to wrangle your toddler and put the sunscreen on and then be like, okay, we're going to wait 20 minutes and then we can go play, because that always works every time. No, it does not. Okay. The active ingredients in this, they're not absorbed into the skin. So that's another reason that I really like it. A lot of the chemicals, you put them on and then they absorb deep into the skin. I just like to have something that just sits kind of more as a barrier on the skin. And that will help you significantly reduce the risk of allergies, allergic reactions and redness and stinging, things like that. It's also really good for people that have, struggle with rosacea or eczema or acne, things like that too. Another reason I really like it, super safe for kids and pregnancy, which as you know is really important. Basically, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide are the only two UV filters that are classified as generally safe by the FDA, making them a top choice for babies, children, pregnant women, really anyone in my opinion. And they naturally shield against both the UVA, which again is the one that causes the premature aging and wrinkles, and then UVB, which causes sunburn. And again, they both cause skin cancer. So that's what we're trying to avoid. The other good news is for those of you who have teenagers that are struggling with acne, or even if you are yourself, it's non-comedogenic. So that means it's not going to block your pores, which is great because it really helps with people with oily skin or acne prone skin. We'll still work on convincing my husband. I gotta say, some of us have husbands that, They love us, but they're still going to do a different thing. He doesn't, to be fair, he's super great. He does a lot of healthy things, but he doesn't like the feeling of the mineral sunblocks as much. But I will say 90% of the time he uses them because that's what I have in the house. So he's been converted, I guess. Another thing that's super great, we may not think about it so much in the mountains, but I know like especially important if you're taking a trip to the beach or like if you're going to the Caribbean or something like that, especially Virgin Islands, because the chemical sunscreens, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they are banned in the Virgin Islands because they're not reef safe. So they're not environmentally friendly and they can hurt the coral reefs. So like the synthetic chemicals such as oxybenzone, OXBENZONE, and I'm going to butcher this, but I think it's octinicate or octinosate, OCTINOXATE. Those two chemicals are really damaging to the coral and can cause coral bleaching, and it really harms the marine ecosystems. So we want to be careful with using sunblocks that are reef safe so that we can protect the coral reef. And that way, when you go snorkeling and things like that, those beautiful reefs will be still there for our children and our grandchildren, or in my case, my nieces and nephews' kids, and all of that. So like, be super careful. Okay. Another reason I like the mineral blocks. So minerals remain stable when they are exposed to direct sunlight. So they are going to maintain their protective qualities so much longer than a chemical sunscreen. And if you know kids, and I do, it is really hard to get them back in from the pool or the beach or wherever they're playing to reapply, right? So we really like to have something that lasts a long time on the skin. You're not constantly having to like reapply it. Another great thing, especially for young kids, is it's usually like, I mean, obviously we got a big glob in your eye or something, but it's mostly like tear-free application. So the thicker, like mineral-based matrix, it's less prone to like running down your face, which I have literally experienced that. Like I have gone for a run and put on some like weird Airbnb sunscreen or something. And then, which thank you for providing it if you own an Airbnb, but it's not my favorite. So I've gone for a run and then had it just like running into my eyes, making me crazy. So the other ones are just much better for that. So young kids obviously are not going to enjoy having stinging and burning in their eyes. Okay, well, really anyone, let's be honest. And then for those of us who work on computers, which who doesn't these days, and that can even be your young children who are in school, there are like, basically an additional kind of barrier that helps with the blue light from the digital screens. And if you don't know, like the blue light sometimes can cause hyperpigmentation in the skin, like those little brown spots and stuff like that. So just another benefit, I guess. So this is all opposed to the chemical sunscreen. So we kind of hinted at this already. What they do is they basically absorb the UV radiation. And I just want to be before we get too fixated on only using the mineral sunscreens, if you're in a pinch, I do want you guys to know the evidence of repeated sunburns to skin cancer is just much stronger than that one-time use of a chemical sunscreen or something like that. So let's say you did go to a nice Airbnb that provided a product that you did not prefer. I don't want you to sit there and panic about using it. Obviously, if you have the option to go run to CVS or something, do that. But it's more important to prevent the skin cancer than it is to overly obsess. It's just that most of the time I'd prefer you guys using the mineral. Okay. So that being said, let's jump into the chemical ones. So the chemical filters, which are the avobenzone and oxybenzone, those are the ones that they easily create a lot of burning and stinging. So it can also create a contact dermatitis, which is basically a reaction to people with really sensitive skin. I know for myself, I do not like the feeling of it close to my eyes at all. I find it just very uncomfortable. As far as systemic absorption, so unlike the mineral ones that sit on your skin and don't absorb in, these actually do get absorbed in. And so the long-term health effects of that are under study. So we just need to be a little careful about that aspect because I'm not sure that I want chemicals absorbing into my body. Okay. Another downside is like, unlike the mineral sunscreens that work immediately, the chemical ones do require like 20 to 30 minutes to absorb in. So you gotta wait. And we all know how well that wait works because all of us remember to apply our sunscreen 20 to 30 minutes before we go to the beach. I certainly never do. Okay. There's also some like concern about, is this an endocrine disruptor? So endocrine system is like the system with all your hormones and everything. So, like your female hormones and your adrenal hormones and like all of those things, that's your endocrine system, like your insulin, that's also endocrine. All the places in your body that are creating hormones, which there's a lot of them, like your thyroid and your pituitary and blah, blah, blah. So there's like a ton of places. So some studies have investigated whether certain chemical UV filters may actually be endocrine disruptors. That said, like, again, if you are using it like that one time, like the risk of skin cancer is probably outweighing these unconfirmed dangers with the sunscreen, with the chemical sunscreens. So like, I don't want you sitting there panicking. This is where nuance really comes into play. Okay. Environmental impact. Again, the coral reefs, if we want to see our coral reefs survive and all that beautiful marine life that hides in the coral and feeds on the coral, we just really want to avoid chemical sunscreens. And like, if you are traveling, know that you may not always be able to use them in the reef areas because they actually, I believe, have been banned. So some of those areas are really taking action to make sure they protect their wildlife so that we can all enjoy it. Okay. Again, you're going to have to reapply it more regularly. So let's just make sure that if you have to use it, you are using it, because otherwise we could end up with some gnarly burns, and especially young kids really suffer. I've seen some stage 2 type burns where you get like the blisters. It's really painful. All right, so let's talk about healthy sun exposure. I absolutely want kids outdoors in nature, playing, not on screens, enjoying the world around them, learning through the 3D world and all of that. And another reason, so in addition to like the mental health benefits of that, which there are many, and we can certainly talk about those. I may even have other episodes. If I do, I'll link them. I want you all to know about vitamin D, because we do want to have some vitamin D. So this is where I think a lot of people kind of get confused and they're like, okay, I should never use sunscreen because what about my vitamin D? Because vitamin D is super great. We all need it. And exposure to sunlight basically triggers the skin to make vitamin D3, which is the type of vitamin that's essential for like our bones, our calcium absorption, our immune systems. But y'all, I want a reality check on this. Just 5 to 10 minutes of like sun exposure, face, arms, like a few days a week is sufficient. Okay. And for most people. Now I will say if you have like a super darker skin tone or a darker skin tone in general, you might need a little bit more time. Okay. But most of us don't need like 8 hours sunblock free. Okay. To make our vitamin D. And so just be like careful with that. I just want to explain a little bit more about that because I do think that it's important to realize that we don't have to be scared that we're not going to get a vitamin D. So enough vitamin D in our bodies. So basically, if you are applying sunblock, most of us are not doing a great job of like applying every little spot on our skin. So you're probably going to get enough like sunlight from that anyway, even if you are out and about. But also, if you're just like going to your car and you didn't like, put sunblock on because you're not thinking about it, you're probably getting enough to make your vitamin D3. So I don't want y'all to be like afraid that you're not getting enough vitamin D3 unless you've been told that you are. Now, I will say this. In our world, there are so many kids on screens for such a long time, whether it be the classroom, whether it be work, that I definitely do see some vitamin D deficiency. So I want your kids to be outside and playing, okay? But it's not like 8 hours without sunscreen is necessary. And it does depend on your geography. So if you're in Miami Beach versus cloudy Portland, of course, that's going to affect things. Depends on the season, right? If it's winter, you're going to get less vitamin D because days are shorter. Again, your skin tone, if you have a very light skin tone, you're going to make that D3 more quickly. If you have darker skin tone, you need a little bit more time in the sun. Your genetics, so your ability to convert the D into the active form. And then, of course, if we're supplementing. So sometimes we supplement because people need that, especially breastfed babies, for example, really need supplementation. And I bring all this up to say that the internet loves these simple answers where it's like, do this or don't, like, never use sunscreen, or like, never supplement vitamin D, or always use sunscreen, or never use, a chemical sunblock ever under any circumstance. That is what the internet loves. The human body is rarely that simple. Okay. So that's where I want you guys to avoid this fear-based messaging. And I think this is basically where most parents kind of get stuck. And I think it's because, when you go to the traditional doctor, the focus is often on symptom management, so that's because the time at your insurance-based conventional pediatrician is very limited. And the reason that it's limited is because it's run by the insurance company, and the insurance company has when I say it's run by, what I mean to say is because the doctors are trying to get a lot of patients in and out the door quickly so that the insurance company will reimburse them fairly, the time with your doctor is severely reduced. And this creates a lot of problems. It's creating like 15-minute visits. It's creating those appointments where they're like, you can ask one question. They're going to be giving like a lot of quick recommendations because that's the time that they have with you. They're also not trained in holistic options. They're not able to offer that advice to you. So if you are looking for something other than just antibiotics and surgeries, it's a little bit more difficult to find that at your conventional insurance-based doctor because they probably are not trained in it. Okay. So the problem is not that anyone is doing something wrong. The problem is that the health decisions rarely happen in isolation. Okay. So some examples of this would be like how sunscreen connects to vitamin D, how vitamin D concerns connect to nutrition, how does nutrition connect to sleep, how does sleep affect immune function, how does immune function affect resilience. So these are things that, I like to go in more deeply with because I have the time to do that and the training to do it. And that's not something you're going to find at a regular pediatrician's office. So all of the connections about how the body works together is often missed. So you're getting like a one sentence answer in most cases and, not as much information as you would like. Okay. And I think parents are not looking for that. I don't think they're wanting just another piece of advice. They can literally Google that or look on ChatGPT. But I think people are really wanting someone that can help them make sense of all the advice. There's so much information out there, and to ask you to become like a mini doctor and spend your life filtering through hours upon hours of research recommendations, influencer recommendations, your best friend, your mother, your dog, someone next door, whatever, is absolutely crazy making. And I believe parents need someone that can filter through all of that and help them make sense of all of this advice. And that's what I'm here to do. When parents join my practice, we rarely talk about just sunscreen, you guys. We're going to talk about your kid, your health history, your goals, your stressors, their sleep, their nutrition, your family's sleep and nutrition, what we're doing with outdoor activity, what are we doing with lifestyle, what are we doing that we might need to supplement. I'm basically here because I want to understand the story that is behind the symptoms or the story behind how I can prevent symptoms from happening. Okay. So like a recommendation that makes sense for one child may not make sense for another at all. Okay. So y'all know this intuitively because it's like when you go out and like everyone's telling you to do something, but your intuition, your mommy or daddy intuition is like, that's not what we need. That is you knowing that a recommendation that makes sense for one child does not make sense for another. And that is why I want you guys to know about the middle path philosophy. My goal is not perfection. It's literally helping families find a sustainable middle path. Most parents don't need someone to scare them. They literally need someone to guide them. And that is what I'm here to help you guys do. If you guys have been listening to the podcast for a while and you're wondering whether a holistic pediatric membership might actually be a good fit for your family, go ahead and schedule that meet and greet. Go to middlepathintegratedpediatrics.com. On the first page, you'll literally see a meet and greet link. Please sign up there, ask questions, learn how we work, see if we're the right fit for your family. If you're not ready for that quite yet, make sure that you join our weekly newsletter. We're going to link that in the show notes. And every single week, I'm like, did I miss any? I don't know. Maybe if I had the flu. Every single week, I share practical pediatric guidance, what's happening in the practice, and kind of patterns that I see in clinic that parents should know about. Okay, so sign up for that as well. And you guys, at the end of the day, your child doesn't need the perfect sunscreen, the perfect nutrition, the perfect summers. They need joyful summers, connected families, and they need parents who feel confident about making their thoughtful decisions. And that's what I'm hoping to help you build, is that internal confidence. I'll see you guys in the next one.